It started on a warm afternoon when people from the small neighborhood gathered at a friend's house for a casual get-together. The place was not fancy, but it had a peaceful feeling to it. Soft music played in the background, snacks were kept on the table, and people moved around freely, talking and laughing. It was the kind of gathering where no one had to pretend or act formal. Everyone felt relaxed. That among the guests was Lena, a cheerful young woman who always had something funny to say. She was known in the neighborhood for her bright smile and the playful way she talked to people. She didn't mean any harm with her jokes. She just liked making others laugh. Her energy could lift the mood of an entire room. Even if people had arrived feeling tired from the day, that Lina was standing near the window, holding a glass of juice while talking to a small group of friends. She was telling a story about how she once tried to learn guitar, but got frustrated after 3 lessons. The group laughed, and she laughed even louder, waving her hands as she spoke. She always used her hands when she talked, as if the story needed extra decoration. A little away from her stood Aaron, a calm and gentle man who kept to himself. He had come to the gathering only because the host was his old friend. Aaron didn't dislike people, but he enjoyed quiet moments more than noisy rooms. He listened carefully when people spoke and didn't interrupt anyone. That made him easy to talk to, even though he didn't say much. Aaron wasn't shy, but he wasn't the type to draw attention either. If someone looked closely, they would notice a softness in his eyes, the kind of softness that belonged to someone who had once held a deep passion in life. But to everyone around, he was simply a quiet man who didn't talk much. At one point, Lena noticed Aaron standing alone. She walked over to him with the same bright energy she carried everywhere. "Hey, you're too quiet," she said with a smile. "Are you enjoying the gathering, or should we bring more snacks to make you talk?" Aaron laughed softly. "I'm fine. Just listening." Lena tilted her head. "You look like someone who has an interesting story. Everyone has something they're good at. What's your hidden talent?" Aaron shrugged lightly. "Nothing special." This answer only made Lena more curious. "Come on, everyone has something. Can you sing? Dance? Cook? Don't tell me you're good at washing dishes." "That doesn't count." Her playful way of speaking made Aaron smile wider. "Maybe washing dishes is my only skill," he said. Lena shook her head dramatically. "No way. You look like someone who can surprise people." Their small conversation caught the attention of a few people standing nearby. They joined in, laughing and adding their guesses about what Aaron's hidden talent might be. The circle around them grew slowly, and suddenly Aaron found himself at the center of attention, something he didn't expect when he walked in. One of the guests joked, "Maybe Aaron plays an instrument. He looks like the quiet musician type." Lena pointed at the old piano sitting in the corner of the room. It was dusty, a kind of piano that had been kept more for decoration than use. "Ah, that piano hasn't been played in years," she said. "Maybe Aaron can wake it up." The group laughed, and Lena continued teasing him. "Tell you what," she said with a playful grin. "If you can play something impressive, like really impressive, I'll marry you." Everyone burst out laughing. Some clapped their hands, others repeated her words in a teasing tone. Lena herself didn't mean the sentence seriously. It was the kind of dramatic line she liked throwing into conversations, just to make people laugh. Aaron felt a small heat rush to his face, not because of embarrassment, but because the words triggered something inside him, something from a life he had left behind. He kept smiling, but his eyes briefly moved toward the piano, as if remembering something distant. Lina noticed the look, though she didn't think much of it. "Don't worry," she said. "I'm joking. I know you won't play. That piano probably forgot what music sounds like anyway." One of the guests called out, "Come on, Aaron. Play something. Even a single note. Let's see what happens to Lena's promise." More laughter filled the room, and the atmosphere became even lighter. Aaron shook his head gently. "I don't think I should," he said, still smiling. He didn't want attention, and he didn't want to bring old memories into this cheerful place. But Lena stepped closer and nudged him lightly with her elbow. "At least try. Just for fun. No pressure. I promise I won't make you actually marry me." The room erupted with laughter again, and Aaron looked around at their bright, encouraging faces. There was no pressure, only good humor. Even though he didn't enjoy being in the spotlight, he didn't want to spoil the mood. The way they all looked at him, hopeful, playful, innocent, reminded him of simpler times. Long before he walked away from music. Times when he played not to impress anyone, not to win anything, but simply because it felt right. Aaron took a slow breath and said, "All right." Just a small tune. People cheered softly. A few clapped. Lena's eyes widened with excitement, though she didn't expect anything extraordinary. She thought he would just tap random keys and make the group laugh again. Aaron walked toward the piano. Each step felt like reopening a chapter he had sealed years ago. The piano looked old, but the keys were still clean. He lifted the cover with gentle hands, the way someone might touch something precious. Everyone gathered around, some standing, some sitting on the armrests of the sofa. Lena stood closest to him, leaning forward slightly with a playful smile. "Okay, let's see what you've got," she whispered. Aaron sat down slowly. His fingers hovered above the keys, not touching them yet. The room, which had been full of laughter only moments ago, slowly became quiet. It wasn't a heavy silence. It was more like a curious one. Lena crossed her arms lightly. She still thought this would be a fun moment, nothing serious. She didn't know she was seconds away from seeing a side of Aaron she never expected. Aaron finally placed his fingers on the keys. The touch felt familiar, almost like greeting an old friend. His heart beat a little faster, not from fear, but from something he thought he had forgotten: connection. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, then pressed the first keys. A soft, beautiful sound floated into the room. The melody was gentle at first, so delicate that people leaned in to hear it better. Lena's smile faded slowly, replaced by a look of surprise. Aaron continued playing, his fingers moving with a natural flow. He didn't rush. He didn't hesitate. Every note carried emotion, the kind that came from years of experience, years no one here knew he had. The room fell completely silent. No one whispered. No one even shifted their weight. They just listened. Lena's heart began to beat faster as she watched him. Her playful challenge suddenly felt unreal, like a joke she wasn't prepared to face the result of. She looked at Aaron's calm face, the way he focused, the way his hands moved with confidence and grace, and in that moment, she realized something she never expected. She had joked about marrying him if he could play. Without knowing, she had said it to someone whose soul once lived inside. Music. Aaron opened his eyes as he finished the short melody. He lifted his hands from the keys slowly, almost reluctantly, as if he didn't want the moment to end. When he looked up, the entire room was staring at him. And Lena was standing there, unable to speak, her playful smile replaced by complete astonishment. For a moment, no one in the room moved. It was as if the final note Aaron played was still floating in the air, refusing to fade. Even the light bulbs seemed quieter, as though the sound had touched everything around them. The silence wasn't empty. It was full of surprise and emotion. People looked at one another just to confirm they weren't imagining what they had heard. Aaron sat there, still and calm, his hands resting gently on his lap. He didn't smile proudly or wait for praise. In fact, he looked almost unsure of how the room would respond. For him, playing the piano wasn't a performance. It was a memory, A small piece of his old life slipping out before he could stop it. Lena stood closest to him, and she felt her breath catch in her throat. Her playful challenge, the loud joke she had made, suddenly felt too big, too careless. She stared at Aaron as if seeing him for the first time. The easygoing, quiet man she had teased minutes ago now looked different, deeper, more complex, like someone carrying secrets she had never imagined. Finally, someone in the back whispered, "That was incredible." Another nodded slowly. "He wasn't joking. He can really play." The whispers grew louder, and soon people were clapping softly, the way one claps after hearing something sacred. Aaron blinked, surprised by the gentle applause. He gave a small smile, humble and shy. Lena's heart hammered in her chest. She felt a mixture of embarrassment, awe, and curiosity swirling inside her. She hadn't meant to make fun of him. She never expected something like this. She stepped closer to him and lowered her voice, as if speaking too loudly might break the magic of the moment. "That was beautiful," she said softly. Aaron looked at her with a quiet humility. "It was nothing. Just something simple." But Lena shook her head slowly. "No, that wasn't simple at all." She wanted to say more, but words suddenly felt too small. So she simply stood there, trying to understand the man who had just stunned the entire room. The others gathered around with questions. "Where did you learn? Have you been playing for years? Do you still perform somewhere?" Aaron didn't answer right away. Having so many eyes on him felt strange, like stepping back into a world he had left behind. But he didn't want to appear rude. "I used to play," he finally said. "A long time ago." One of the older guests leaned toward the piano and tapped it. "If that was you without practice, I can't imagine what you were like back then." Aaron smiled faintly, but didn't respond. Lena watched him carefully. She noticed something the others didn't. Behind his calm expression, there was a shadow, something unspoken, something heavy. But she didn't want to push him. Not now. People continued praising him. A few asked him to play another song, but Aaron gently refused. That one was enough, he said in a warm tone. The group respected his request and drifted away slowly, still talking excitedly about what they had heard. When the attention faded, Lena walked to the sofa and sat down, trying to make sense of everything. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had stepped into something far bigger than a simple joke. Aaron stayed near the piano for a moment longer, running his hand lightly along the wooden edge. His posture seemed calm, but his mind wasn't. Playing the piano again, even briefly, had awakened memories he had locked away. It felt good, but also painful. After a minute, he stepped away and walked toward an empty spot near the wall, hoping to blend into the background again. But Lena wasn't ready to let the moment go. She walked over to him quietly. "Hey," she said, her voice softer than usual. "Do you mind if I ask something?" Aaron looked up. "Sure. Why do you say you used to play?" His eyes drifted away for a second, as if he were searching for the right answer. "It's complicated," he said. "I don't really play anymore." Lena nodded slowly. "Did something happen?" Aaron hesitated. People around them were still talking, laughing, moving about. He didn't want to open up deeply in front of a crowd, not about this part of his life. "Maybe one day I'll explain," he said gently. "Just not right now." Lena respected that. She didn't push. Instead, she smiled softly. "That's okay. I didn't mean to make things heavy. I was just surprised." Aaron returned the smile. "I know, and your joke was funny. You didn't do anything wrong." Lena let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Still, it was embarrassing. "I didn't know you had that kind of talent." Aaron chuckled quietly. "Most people don't." They stood together in calm silence for a moment. It wasn't awkward. It felt thoughtful, almost peaceful. The host suddenly walked toward them, grinning widely. "Aaron, you didn't tell me you could play like that. Why have you been hiding this from us?" Aaron shook his head. "I wasn't hiding anything. I just didn't think it mattered." The host playfully slapped his shoulder. "It matters now. I'm never letting you leave until you teach me how to play like that." Aaron laughed, easing the atmosphere, and the host moved on, still talking happily. Lena watched Aaron as he interacted with others. Something about him felt different from most people she knew. There was a mixture of quiet strength and heaviness in him, as if he had lived through experiences that had shaped him in ways no one could see. When people approached him with compliments, he responded with simple nods and smiles. He didn't brag or pretend to be humble. He just accepted their words with sincerity. After a while, Lena stepped outside to get some fresh air. The evening breeze brushed her skin, cooling her thoughts. She sat on the steps and looked at the sky. Stars were slowly appearing, scattered like tiny lights. She thought about her joke. "If you can play something impressive, I'll marry you?" It sounded so silly now. She hadn't meant it, of course, not seriously. But hearing him play made her wonder who he really was. She remembered the soft intensity of his playing, the way he closed his eyes, the feeling in each note. It didn't sound like someone who had casually learned an instrument. It sounded like someone who had lived inside music. A few minutes later, she heard footsteps and turned. Aaron was standing near the doorway. "Mind if I sit?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, of course not." He sat a few steps below her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Aaron looked up at the sky and said quietly, "I used to play in competitions. Big ones. Music school, concerts, all of that." Lena's breath caught. She didn't interrupt. "People expected a lot from me," Aaron continued. "Too much sometimes. It stopped feeling like something I loved. It became something I feared. Every performance felt like a battle I could lose. Even when I won, I didn't feel happy. I just felt tired." His voice wasn't bitter, just honest. "One day," he said, "I walked away from all of it. I just couldn't breathe anymore." Lena listened with her full attention. She could feel the weight of his words. Aaron looked down at his hands, the same hands that had played with such grace. "I haven't played seriously since then. Today was unexpected." Lena swallowed softly. "I'm glad you played," she said. "Not because of my joke, but because it felt like it meant something to you." Aaron gave her a small smile. Maybe it did. They sat there, side by side, listening to the soft sounds from inside the house. The laughter, the music, the conversations, they all blended together like a warm background. Lena turned toward him. "Do you ever think about playing again?" she asked. Aaron took a deep breath, as if the question stirred something inside him. "Sometimes," he said, "but I'm not sure I'm ready." Lena nodded. "Whenever you are, even if it's just for yourself, that would be enough." Aaron stared at her for a moment, surprised by her gentle understanding. "Thank you," he whispered. They fell into silence again. But this time the silence felt comfortable, like a quiet friendship forming naturally. Inside the house, someone called Lena's name, and she stood up. "I should go back in," she said. Aaron nodded. "Yeah." Before she stepped inside, she looked back at him. "For what it's worth, I meant it earlier when I said your playing was beautiful. And not because it shocked everyone, but because it felt honest." Aaron's eyes softened. "I'm glad it reached you." Lena smiled gently and walked inside, leaving Aaron on the steps with the cool night breeze wrapping around him. As he sat there alone, he felt something he hadn't felt in years, a small, almost fragile spark. Something that whispered maybe, just maybe, He could let music back into his life, but he didn't know yet that the person who would help him find that path again was the same woman who had made that playful marriage challenge only hours earlier. The gathering slowly began to break into smaller groups again, but even though people were laughing and chatting, a soft echo of Aaron's music still hung in the air. It was one of those moments that refused to fade, even as time moved forward. A few people returned to the snack table. Others stepped outside for fresh air, and some sat down to continue old conversations. But every now and then, someone would glance toward the piano again, as if expecting it to come alive once more. Inside the house, Lena tried to act normal, but her mind kept drifting back to the melody Aaron had played. It had touched something in her, something she wasn't fully ready to understand. She moved around the room, pretending to listen to different conversations, but her eyes kept searching for him. Aaron was sitting near the corner now, talking quietly with the host. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes still carried that distant look, like someone who had stepped out of a memory and wasn't entirely back yet. Finally, Lena walked toward him. She didn't want to seem too eager, but something inside her told her she needed to talk to him again. When she reached them, the host excused himself and left the two alone. Lena took a seat in front of Aaron, her hands loosely folded in her lap. "You know," she began lightly, "I'm starting to think you didn't come here just to enjoy snacks. You came here to shock everyone." Aaron shook his head with a soft laugh. "Trust me, shock was the last thing on my mind." Lena leaned forward slightly. "Can I ask you something?" Aaron nodded. "Go ahead. When you were playing, what were you thinking about? You looked like you were somewhere far away." Aaron grew quiet for a moment. He pressed his fingertips together gently, as if trying to organize his thoughts. "It's strange," he said finally. "When I sit at a piano, it feels like time slows down. Everything else becomes blurry, except the keys. It used to be something I loved deeply, but when it turned into pressure, I tried to forget what it meant to me." Lena listened silently, her eyes soft. "And today," Aaron continued, "just touching the keys brought back everything. The good memories, the bad ones, the hours of practice. It all came rushing back." Lena understood more than he expected. "It must have been hard," she said softly. Aaron responded with a quiet nod. "It was." A moment passed between them. Not an awkward one, just a stillness filled with unspoken understanding. Then, in an attempt to lighten the mood, Lena smiled. "Well, if it makes you feel better, you scared me." Aaron raised an eyebrow. "Scared you?" "Yes," Lena said with a mock-serious tone. "I thought you were just a quiet guy who enjoyed standing near walls. I didn't expect a hidden musical storm inside you." He laughed, the sound gentle but warm. Lena felt her chest loosen. She liked hearing him laugh. "You know," she added with a hint of embarrassment, "I feel really silly about my joke earlier." Aaron looked at her kindly. "You don't need to?" "It was funny." Lena groaned softly and covered her face with both hands. "I literally said I'd marry you if you played something impressive. And then you go and play like that. How am I supposed to survive that level of embarrassment?" Aaron smiled. "I knew you were joking." She lowered her hands and looked at him. "Still, I didn't expect to challenge a real maestro." Aaron blinked. "Maestro is a big word." "Not big enough for what you did," she replied. He shook his head gently. "I used to be good at it." "Not anymore." Lena disagreed silently, but she didn't push the point. Instead, she shifted the conversation. "So, you never think about going back to playing?" Aaron looked down at his hands again. "Sometimes I do, but I'm afraid of what it might pull me into." Lena leaned back slightly. "Maybe it won't pull you anywhere. Maybe it'll just give you something you've been missing." Aaron took a slow breath, as if her words touched something in him. Before he could reply, someone called Lena from across the room. She turned and waved back, signaling she'd come in a minute. When she looked back at Aaron, she smiled. "I'll let you breathe. But don't think you're getting away from me. I have about 50 more questions." Aaron chuckled. "I'll be here." Lena walked away, but she glanced over her shoulder twice before she reached the other side of the room. Something about him pulled her attention over and over. The night grew deeper, and slowly people began to leave. The host thanked everyone, and one by one they stepped out into the cool air. Some hugged, some waved goodnight, and some promised to meet again soon. Lena stayed until the end. She didn't plan it, but she found reasons to linger. Aaron stayed too, helping the host clean up a bit, picking up empty cups, closing windows, fixing a crooked picture frame. After a while, only 3 people remained: the host, Aaron, and Lena. The host stretched his arms and yawned dramatically. "I think I'm done for the night," he said. "You two should head out. I'll finish the rest tomorrow." Aaron and Lena exchanged a glance, both not wanting to seem too eager to leave or stay. "Let me walk you out," Aaron said politely. Lena nodded. "Sure." Outside, the night had grown colder. The streetlights cast a soft glow across the quiet road. A few leaves drifted down from the trees, rustling gently on the ground. Lena crossed her arms lightly, rubbing her elbows. Aaron noticed immediately. "You're cold," he said. "A little," she admitted, without thinking too much. Aaron slipped off his light jacket and offered it to her. "Take it." Lena hesitated. "But then you'll be cold." "It's okay," he said with a small smile. "I'm used to it." She took the jacket and slipped it on. It fit loosely around her, and she pulled it closer for warmth. "Thank you," she said quietly. Aaron nodded. For a moment, they both just stood there, looking at the street. It was calm, almost peaceful. A dog barked somewhere far away. A few windows still had lights on. It was the kind of quiet that made conversations feel more meaningful. "You know," Lena said after a moment, "I never really thought about talent the way I did tonight." Aaron glanced at her. "How do you mean?" "When people say someone is talented, we imagine they just got lucky or were born with it. But after seeing you play, I realized talent comes with a story, with sacrifice, with things people don't see." Aaron listened carefully. She continued, "And when someone steps away from something they were once great at, it doesn't mean they stopped caring. It just means the story changed." Aaron's eyes softened. "You understand things more deeply than you think." Lena looked down, shy from the unexpected compliment. She then turned to face him fully. "You should give yourself more credit, Aaron. You didn't just impress a room. You touched people." He exhaled slowly, as if her words reached a part of him he had long ignored. "Maybe?" he said. A small silence settled between them, comfortable, warm. And Lena spoke again. "I know tonight was unexpected, but I'm glad I got to see that side of you." Aaron smiled gently. "I'm glad you were there." They stood there for another minute, neither of them making a move to leave. Finally, Aaron asked quietly, "Can I walk you home?" Lena felt her cheeks warm. "I'd like that." They began walking side by side, their steps slow and steady. The street was calm, and their shadows stretched behind them. Lena's hair moved gently with the breeze. Aaron kept a light pace, making sure she felt comfortable. As they walked, Lena asked, "Do you ever miss the stage? The big lights? The applause?" Aaron shook his head. "Not the stage, not the pressure. But I do miss the feeling of being lost in a melody. I miss the part of music that felt pure." Lena nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe you could find that part again. Not for the world, just for yourself." Aaron considered her words. "Maybe I could. When they reached the corner where their paths separated, they stopped. "This is me," Lena said quietly. Aaron nodded. "And you're home safe." Before she returned his jacket, she paused. "Can I keep this for now?" Aaron smiled warmly. "Of course. Keep it as long as you like." Lena smiled back. "Good night, Aaron." "Good night, Lina." She took a few steps backward, still looking at him. Then she turned and walked toward her door. Aaron watched her go, the streetlight casting a warm glow around her. Something inside him felt lighter, calmer. The kind of calm that comes when a new chapter quietly begins. He turned around and walked home, unaware that this simple walk, this simple night, was the start of something neither of them had expected. The afternoon sun hung low, casting a warm gold through the windows of the small music shop he worked in. Dust danced lazily in the beams of light, and the faint smell of polished wood drifted quietly through the air. He had spent years inside this place, repairing instruments, tuning them, handling them with a kind of careful respect that came naturally to him. But today, everything felt a little different. He felt a restlessness in his chest, something pushing him to think beyond this quiet room. He stood behind the counter, carefully tightening the strings on an old violin someone had brought for repair. His hands were steady, practiced. But his mind kept wandering, not to the past, not to his old music academy days, but to the park, to the bench, to her. The conversations they had shared earlier that morning replayed in his thoughts like a melody that refused to fade away. He didn't understand how so much could change so quickly. For years he had lived quietly, preferring stillness over attention, choosing silence over involvement. Yet somehow she had slipped past the quiet barriers in his life without even trying. Her honesty, her openness, the way she looked at him as if she saw more than what he allowed others to see, had stirred something inside him. He didn't know what that meant yet. All he knew was that it mattered. The shop bell rang gently, pulling him out of his thoughts. The door swung open, and she stepped inside. He froze for a second. He had not expected her. Not so soon. She smiled as she walked toward him, though her eyes carried a hint of something unsure. "I hope I'm not interrupting." He set the violin down carefully. "No, you're not. I just didn't expect to see you again today." She looked around the shop, her gaze moving across the guitars hanging on the walls, the polished pianos, the small instruments arranged neatly on shelves. "I didn't plan it either. I was walking and found myself here. Maybe it was the universe gently pushing me." He raised an eyebrow, amused. "You believe in that?" "Sometimes," she said with a soft laugh. "Sometimes things happen at the right moment, and it feels like a sign." He didn't answer immediately, but the thought sat with him. A sign. Maybe he needed one. She stepped a little closer, her voice gentle. "Can I see something? Something you're working on?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Sure." He led her to the small wooden table he used for repairs. The violin lay there, the wood still warm but beautiful. She leaned slightly over it, studying the curves and thin lines carved into the body. "You're gentle with everything you touch," she said quietly. "Even things that are cracked, scratched, or broken." He shrugged a little. "Everything deserves care. Even people?" she asked, looking up. His breath caught for a moment, and he felt his heart slow. "Yes, even people." Her eyes softened, and she held his gaze for a moment, longer than before. Something unspoken passed between them, something warm, quiet, and new. Before he could find the words to explain what he was feeling, she asked, "Can I show you something in return?" "Of course." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small, folded notebook. The cover was worn, the corners bent from years of being carried around. She opened it carefully and turned the pages toward him. He leaned closer. Each page was filled with little sketches, people sitting in parks, Strangers walking past, old houses with cracked windows, children playing near rooftops. The drawings were simple but full of heart, each one made with gentle lines and soft shading. "You draw," he said, surprised. She nodded shyly. "Not many people know. I don't show it often, but you shared your music with me yesterday, so I wanted to share something too." He studied the drawings carefully, noticing the hidden details in each one, the expression in a face, the quiet feeling of a scene captured in motion, the emotion behind the lines. "These are beautiful," he said, her cheeks colored slightly. "Thank you. I draw moments that make me feel something." He turned another page and paused. "This one. This is the street near my place." "Yes," she said with a small smile. "I passed by it one evening. The lamps were glowing softly, and you were sitting outside fixing a guitar. I wanted to remember that moment, so I drew it." He stared at her, startled. "You drew me?" "It wasn't about you." "Not exactly. It was the moment. The feeling. It felt peaceful." Peaceful. The word touched him deeply. "You see things differently," he said softly. "Maybe," she replied. "But I think you do too. You just don't show it as easily." He turned a few more pages, each filled with scenes from their small town, captured in gentle strokes. Something inside him warmed as he looked through them. "You're talented. Maybe someday I'll be brave enough to show more people," she said. "But for now, I just wanted you to see it." He closed the notebook carefully, almost as if it were fragile. "I'm glad you did." A quiet moment settled between them, again, not heavy, but warm, like a soft blanket laid over both of their thoughts. She took a breath. "There's something I want to ask you." He nodded slowly. "Go ahead." "When you played yesterday, that wasn't just skill. There was emotion in every note. It was like you were telling a story you've kept hidden." He looked down, unsure how to respond. "Would you tell me that story?" she asked gently. "Not all of it, if you're not ready. Just a piece. Just enough for me to understand." He rubbed his thumb gently over a cloth lying on the table, thinking. A story, his story. The story he had avoided for years. "It started when I was young," he finally said. "Music wasn't just something I learned. It was something people expected from me. My family, my teachers, everyone. I loved it, truly. But over time, the expectations grew heavier. Every day felt like a test. Every failure was treated like a disaster." She listened, her expression soft, patient. "My teacher used to say I could be great, one of the best. But that meant long hours, pressure, competitions, never resting. And somewhere along the way, I lost the joy. I lost myself. So I chose to walk away." "Did they understand?" she asked quietly. He shook his head. "They called me ungrateful. Sighed I was wasting my life. Some even stopped speaking to me. But I couldn't continue pretending I was fine. I couldn't keep forcing myself to be someone I wasn't." She took in his words as if absorbing each one. "That must have been painful." "It was. But staying would have hurt even more." She nodded gently. "I'm glad you chose yourself." He looked at her then, truly looked. "You don't think I gave up?" "No," she replied. "I think you saved yourself. And I think maybe now it's time to slowly open the door again. Not because people expect it, but because a part of you misses it." He didn't answer, but the silence spoke enough. She stepped closer, her voice low. "You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to let yourself breathe again." Her words entered him like sunlight slipping through a broken window, soft, warm, unexpected. "Maybe," he said quietly. "Maybe one day?" She smiled. "And when that day comes, I'll be there to listen. No jokes, no pressure. Just me. He felt something shift again, something gentle and meaningful. Before he could respond, the shop bell jingled, signaling a new customer. A middle-aged woman stepped inside, holding a small guitar. He offered a polite nod, then turned back to the woman beside him. "I should get back to work," he said softly. "Of course," she replied, though he sensed she wasn't ready to leave. She took a step back toward the door, then paused. "Can I come by tomorrow?" He hesitated for only a moment. "Yes, I'd like that." She smiled a warm, gentle smile that made his chest feel lighter. "Then I'll see you tomorrow," she said, and with a soft wave, she stepped out of the shop. He watched her through the window as she walked down the street. The sunlight caught her hair, the breeze played with the edges of her clothes, and something inside him whispered that her arrival in his life wasn't random at all. That maybe it really was a sign. He returned to the violin on the table, but this time his hands felt different. The worry that usually weighed on him felt a little less heavy. The room felt a little brighter, and deep within him, that small spark he thought he had lost long ago grew. Just a little more. Tomorrow didn't feel scary, it felt like a new beginning. The morning arrived quietly, with soft light settling over the rooftops like a gentle whisper from the sky. He woke before his alarm, not because of worry, but because something in his heart felt unusually calm. For years, waking up meant preparing to face another day of silence, another day of hiding away from the world and its expectations. But today felt different. Today felt like a page turning. He sat on the edge of his bed for a moment, letting the quiet settle around him. He could hear the distant hum of traffic on the main road, the light clinking of dishes from the neighbor's apartment as they prepared breakfast. Life was moving simple and steady, and he felt ready to move with it. He washed up, got dressed, and stepped out into the cool air. The streets were slowly filling with people, but he didn't feel overwhelmed the way he sometimes used to. Instead, he felt strangely grounded. As he walked, memories of the last few days floated through his thoughts. Her laughter, the softness in her eyes when she spoke, the honesty in the way she looked at him when she asked him to trust himself again. There was something steady about her, something that made him want to open doors inside himself he had locked for years. He reached the music shop early, unlocking the door and stepping into the familiar scent of wood and faint polish. The instruments rested silently on their shelves, waiting. He ran his fingers lightly along the edge of a guitar as he passed, feeling its smoothness. He didn't know what the day would bring, but he knew it mattered. He spent the first hour cleaning, rearranging a few boxes, and tuning a couple of guitars that needed attention. His movements were steady but thoughtful. Every now and then he caught himself glancing at the door, wondering if she would come exactly when she said she would, wondering if she might arrive early, and then, as if the world had aligned itself with his thoughts, the bell above the door chimed. She stepped inside, her hair lifted slightly by the morning breeze, her smile gentle, but carrying a hint of something deeper, something approaching hope. "Good morning," she said softly. "Good morning," he replied. Unable to stop the quiet smile forming on his face, she stepped closer, resting her bag on a nearby table. "I didn't want to be late." "You're right on time," he said. There was a small pause, not awkward, but filled with something warm. "How are you feeling today?" she asked. He thought about it for a second, then said, "Better, lighter." She nodded, as if she understood more than his words revealed. "I'm glad. I was thinking about you last night. About what you said. About everything you've been carrying." He lowered his gaze slightly. "I'm not used to sharing that much." "You don't have to share anything you're not ready to," she said gently. "But I'm here." He looked at her again, appreciating the softness in her voice. the sincerity in her eyes. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The music shop felt like a world of its own, a quiet corner untouched by the noise outside. Then she took a slow breath. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Would you play today? Even just a little?" He felt his chest tighten, not in fear, but in something close to anticipation. I'm not sure," he said truthfully. "That's okay," she replied. "I didn't mean to rush you. I wanted to hear you again. But only if you're comfortable." He looked around the shop, the piano in the corner, the one he had avoided for months, maybe years. The keys waited patiently, untouched yet full of promises. "Sit with me for a bit first," he said. She smiled, and not a dot. They moved to the small seating area near the window, where rays of sunlight painted soft shapes on the floor. She sat across from him, hands clasped lightly in her lap. "What's on your mind?" she asked. He leaned back slightly. "I keep thinking about how everything changed so quickly. How I went from hiding from music to thinking about playing again. And it scares me. But it also doesn't feel as heavy as before." She listened carefully, her expression warm. "Maybe that's what happens when the right person stands beside you. Things that felt impossible start feeling possible again." Her words settled deep in him. "You've been kinder to me than you realize," he said. "You've helped me breathe again." She softened even more at that. "You did the hard part yourself. I just stood near the door while you opened it." He smiled faintly. "You make it sound easy." "It's not easy," she said. "But it's real." A moment of stillness passed between them, filled with quiet understanding. Then she asked, "Can I tell you something too? Something I've been holding on to?" He nodded. "I want to hear it." She took a deep breath. "That night at the party, when I said those silly words, 'If you play, I will marry you,' I didn't think. I was careless. But when you started playing, something inside me moved. Not because of what I said, but because I saw you. I saw someone who had so much inside him, someone who wasn't trying to impress anyone, someone who was pure in a world full of noise." He felt heat rise in his chest. Her honesty hit him like warm sunlight. "I'm sorry if my joke hurt you," she continued. "I really am. But I'm grateful too, because if I hadn't said it, maybe you wouldn't have played. Maybe you wouldn't have opened that door in yourself again. And maybe we wouldn't be here now." He didn't speak for a few seconds. He needed the moment to settle. "I don't hold it against you," he finally said. "Not anymore. That night changed things for me too. In a good way." She looked relieved, as if she had been carrying that weight for days. "Thank you," she whispered. He leaned slightly forward. "Do you want to hear something?" She nodded. "When I played that night, I didn't play for them. Not for the crowd. Not because of what you said. I played because something in your voice reminded me of who I used to be. And I didn't want to lose that again." Her eyes softened so deeply that for a moment he felt like the world had gone still. "Quietly," she said, "then let's find that person again. Together." Those words stayed in the air like a soft promise. He stood slowly, almost without thinking, and walked toward the piano in the corner. She followed him with her eyes, staying seated, but leaning forward slightly. He placed his fingers on the keys, not pressing yet, just touching them, feeling their coolness. His breath shook slightly. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She simply waited. After a long moment, he pressed one key. The note drifted gently through the small room. Another key, then another, and then, like a small flame catching a bit of wind, something awakened inside him, a familiar warmth he had buried for too long. He began to play, soft at first, careful, like speaking a language he hadn't used in years. But slowly, His hands moved with more ease. The melody formed, growing warm and full, shaping emotions he had held inside himself for years. She watched him with wide, shining eyes. Not admiration. Something deeper. Something like witnessing someone heal in real time. When he finished, the final note hung in the air long after his fingers lifted. He turned to her. She stood up slowly, walked toward him, and stopped just a few steps away. "That was beautiful," she whispered. He swallowed lightly. It felt free. She smiled softly. "Then keep going. Not for the world. For yourself." He nodded. She hesitated, then said, in a voice barely above a whisper, "And about what I said that night. The joke about marrying you." He looked up. Heart steady. She continued gently. "It doesn't have to be a joke anymore. Not if you don't want it to be." His breath caught, but not in fear. In something else. Something warm. Something true. He stepped closer. "Let's take things slow, but I want to see where this goes. With you." Her eyes glowed with quiet happiness. "Slow is good," she whispered. They stood there, close enough to feel each other's breath. The piano quietly resting beside them like a silent witness. The shop felt different now. Not just a place of old instruments, but a place where new beginnings could happen. He reached out and gently took her hand. She held his back, steady and sure. And in that small music shop, with sunlight pouring through the windows and a soft melody still lingering in the air, two people who had been lost in different ways found something neither of them expected. Reason to hope. A reason to begin again. A reason to choose each other. Slowly but surely. And for the first time in years, his heart felt whole.